Welcome to this Zoom webinar forum with the candidates for Kitsap County Auditor. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, which is recording this event for later access. BKAT, Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, is also recording tonight. My name is Elizabeth Sebrin, and I will be your moderator for this forum. The League of Women Voters, which celebrated its 100th anniversary in 2020, is proud to be a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties. We'd like to invite you, anyone age 16 or older, all genders, to join our organization and support our mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. The public was invited to send in questions through the League's website. We've consolidated those, plus others, into questions I will ask tonight of the candidates. The questions will cover a range of topics and issues pertinent to the job of County Auditor. Candidates are Mike Simpson and incumbent Paul Andrews. Thanks to both of you for your stepping up to offer your skills and talents in service of the county. We ask that during this forum, you maintain civility with one another. Candidates, during tonight's format, both of you will be given 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. We will go in the order your names appear on the ballot. Then I will begin the questions. In a rotating order, you will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. If you have answered a question and have time remaining, you may speak about a previous question or clarify a statement. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement. If you run out of time, you may finish your sentence. Our timekeeper will maintain the countdown electronic clock. So we will begin. Now you will each have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement. We will begin with Mr. Andrews.
Well, thank you. Good evening, and to everyone that's attending tonight. And thank you for being here. And thank you to the League for hosting this. I am Paul Andrews, your Kitsap County Auditor. As a servant leader, I have 27 years of experience serving the people of Kitsap County. I'm a certified elections administrator. I serve as co-chair on the State Licensing Committee. I'm on the board. I'm a board member of the Washington Association of County Auditors. I'm also on the State Recording Standards Board, and I serve on the Kitsap County Finance Committee. The job of auditor is very detailed, and experience matters. And this isn't the place for on-the-job training. And many of the programs I've implemented that promote transparency, accountability, and integrity have become the model for how other counties conduct business. With an annual budget of just under $5 million and a staff of 30, we provide essential services to the people of Kitsap County. As you might realize, the job of auditor is central to county government, and the services we provide are required by so many. We were open throughout the pandemic and are the only office to return to a pre-pandemic level of service. I love making government work for people. Misinformation is the biggest challenge we face in elections today, and you're going to hear all kinds of elaborate conspiracies from my opponent that involve almost every elected official in Kitsap County. I look forward to answering your questions this evening, and I hope it helps you cast your vote for auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Now we'll go to you, Mr. Simpson.
Hi, thanks for having me here. This is a great opportunity to present the information that everyone needs to cast good votes. I'm Mike Simpson, and I'm running for Kitsap County Auditor. I was born here in Kitsap County. Went to South Kitsap High School, graduated there. I've attended and graduated from Olympic College. I'm a former deputy and corrections officer here for the county. I am retired military, and I'm a former Bremerton City Council member. Now, why am I running for office? Well, the job of auditor is an important one. It requires integrity, and integrity is the contract that we the governed have with our elected officials. And when our elected officials don't have that integrity, when they dishevel, when they obfuscate, when they lie, when they don't tell the truth, they break that contract and they should be removed from office. Now, my opponent has mentioned that there is just wild conspiracies, but when it comes to the choice in government between conspiracy and incompetence, 9 times out of 10, if you go with incompetence, you're probably right. Why do I say this? Well, last year there was a candidate that was trying to buy votes and offered to pay people to vote, and my opponent failed to investigate that, failed to do his duty as the auditor to keep our voting safe.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Now we'll move on to question number 1. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. What are the most important duties of a county auditor, and what will be your top priority if elected? We'll begin with Mr. Simpson.
Well, the most important duty of the auditor is to make sure that our elections are safe and secure. And when you run your own election campaign, you should know not to violate the PDC rules in the first week and misfile your office. And when the PDC comes back to ask you why you misfiled with using your county office as your headquarters for your campaign, you can't just throw your staff under the bus. That's just not right. That's not good leadership. That's mismanagement at best. And it is important as an elected official that we ensure that our duties are fulfilled, that we do our job, and we do this in a nonpartisan, non-biased manner. And it's important that we make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Andrews, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. What are the most important duties of a county auditor, and what will be your top priority if elected?
Well, job of county auditor is very complex, and elections is the thing that gets the most attention, and well-deserved. It is the center of democracy for everything that we do. And so, that is where we spend most of our time and efforts in conducting. But finance plays a huge part in the office as well. We are responsible for auditing and reporting all of the county's financial spendings and making sure that we've generated all the necessary reports and everything for the state auditors. And that affects our credit score and how we can conduct business and do other things that are not auditor's office related. We are responsible for providing licensing and everything for everybody in the county. But for me, it's about restoring the faith in elections, and we've done that by implementing the first ever independent third-party audit of an election system. We've included live stream cameras so you can watch what we do, and we've made this process so that everybody can participate. It's fully inclusive.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Question number 2. What are your qualifications for being auditor, and why are you the best candidate? We'll begin with Mr. Andrews.
My qualifications are, I've been doing the job. I'm a certified elections administrator. I've managed $1.6 billion of taxpayer money, receiving the best audits the county's seen in 12 years. I represent the county in many aspects of the job, as far as being on the state licensing committee, being a member of the finance committee for the county, where I have oversight on how the county's spending money. I've got 27 years experience working for the county, working with all of the cities and the tribes and the employees and the different departments in the county. So I've established myself as a trusted person that knows how county government operates. And I've been serving this community. I understand this community. I've been a volunteer. I've been on the board of many nonprofits, and I listen to the public. I know what their needs are, and I've developed an office that is meeting those needs, and we're exceeding those needs by offering new services and more options so that they can get their business needs handled by us.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh, no, thank you. I think
Okay.
you did a beautiful job explaining it before. Yeah. And why am I the best candidate? Well, integrity is absolutely important. And that's the thing. I've demonstrated the integrity that's required for this job. I served on the audit committee when I was on the Brampton City Council. I also was on the finance committee while I was on the Brampton City Council. I've worked in the private sector in addition to my public service for the community here. In the private sector, I work for Fortune 500 companies, and I manage divisions of up to 1,000 people with a budget that exceeded $165 million. I have the experience and the attention to detail that makes all this stuff important. And with your vote, I'll be your next auditor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simpson. Question number 3. Some people have claimed that elections using mail-in ballots, such as ours here in Washington State, are more susceptible to fraud than going to the polls in person. Do you agree or disagree? And explain why. Mr. Simpson, we begin with you.
Any type of election is susceptible to fraud. Mail-in ballots have an inherent amount of fraud because the time that the ballot is away from the elections official and it gets to the person who is supposed to vote is delayed. And the time between when the person casts their ballot and it goes back to the election official, it delays the process. And it has the appearance where it is more susceptible to fraud than any other way out there. However, in-person voting can have fraud in it too. And it all depends on faith. I was in Iraq for the first democratic elections there, and the Iraqi people, they didn't trust the institutions that were there. They required in-person voting. We managed to make it happen, and we managed to secure it and make sure it worked and do it efficiently. And the people there trusted the vote, and they were proud to vote in person and run around with that indelible ink on their finger.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. And Mr. Andrews, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vote by mail is the safest way that we can conduct an election, and it goes beyond just the vote by mail, but it's all the suite of laws that Washington State has that goes along with the vote by mail. We minimize the number of touch points and access points into the system. We control the environment as far as all of the equipment that's involved. It's easier to vet the staff that's involved, and we can give you results much faster and more accurately than if we were conducting them through polling places and then having to consolidate all of that information somewhere and then trying to then tabulate the ballots. So it's been shown that vote by mail increases participation in your community. It's accessible to everybody, and it is a much more successful tool for us to conduct elections and be all inclusive for all the people of Kitsap County or the state of Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Question number 4. Washington State allows homeless people to vote, even though they may have no fixed address. In what ways can the auditor and election workers reach out to the homeless, students going to colleges in other states, military personnel serving overseas, and other citizens living outside the United States? We'll begin with Mr. Andrews.
There's a lot going on in that question. To start with the homeless, homeless can vote with a non-standard address, and that allows us to precinct them where they're at so we know what ballot they can get. But then we have the trouble of getting the ballot to them. And because they have a non-standard address that we can't mail them to, they typically are required to have to go to one of our vote centers, which we have 3 across the county with many hours of availability over 3 days to allow that to happen. As far as the students and people off in college out of state, typically these students are registering to vote before they've gone away. Washington state law allows 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote. They can utilize their parents' home address for their precincting, and then they can get a seasonal address assigned to them so that when they're off in college, they'll be able to get the ballot delivered to them and they can get it back to us. And then the overseas citizens have a whole program that's approved by law, that's for UOCAVA, Uniform and Overseas Voter Act, that allows us to communicate with them and provide those ballots wherever they are. The furthest we send a ballot is Cape Horn, South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. Simpson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So as Paul stated, there is a lot to unpack there. Homeless people voting. And he mentioned non-standard addresses. Now, a non-standard address can be as simple as the Greenbelt on Kitsap Way by Burger King. Now, this leads to a lot of questions about where this person actually lives. There's residency requirements for in our state for where someone's supposed to be. and it gets to be an interesting morass of where they're at and where they can vote. And it is the best option that they vote in person at one of the 3 polling stations that we have in the county, but we should increase the number of polling stations to ease access for those folks. Now, our overseas voters, they have an established process that's already set up in place and governed by federal law. And for other folks, for pre-registration, that's something that's unique for our state. I believe I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. All right, for question number 5. In November 2018, 72.4% of registered voters in Kitsap County voted. In November 2020, the percentage went up to 83.8%. What would you do to increase voter turnout? We'll begin with Mr. Simpson.
Well, people vote if they trust the system. If they don't trust the system, they won't vote. It's pretty simple. The way that you increase voter trust is by holding people accountable when they break the rules of the system. If a candidate, like last year in the Bremerton City Council race, offers to pay people to vote, you hold them accountable. You do what the law says. You take the information to the canvassing board. Then you contact the individual who's offering to pay people for votes. And then the third thing that you do is you take that information and you give it to our prosecutor's office, and you ensure that they are prosecuted. You hold their feet to the fire and make them accountable. That's the way that your vote's protected and my vote's protected. If you don't, then people don't trust the system and they won't vote. That's the easiest way to do it. And it's part of your due diligence as an elected official.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Andrews, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm good, thank you. I mean, people vote because they have an interest, and we see spikes every 4 years because of the presidential race and everything that's happening at a national level. And so to increase voting, you need to increase interest. And we've been attempting to do that by our communication platform. We've opened up a very robust social media. We've used the county's communication network to provide more information. We have more information going out, through vote centers. We're working with different organizations to share information, about the fact that, voting is happening. We've put more information on the ballot, like when the election day is, so that they're reminded. And now in your voter pack, which you'll be getting by the end of this weekend, we have an I voted sticker that I believe is actually going to help remind people to vote, because it will be that visual reminder that you're going to see when you're out in shopping or wherever you might be. So it's all about communication and sparking an interest in what's happening in the election.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. The next question. In some parts of the country, election workers have been subject to online attacks and even death threats from members of the public who feel the 2020 election was rigged. What actions can an auditor take to halt or minimize such attacks? We'll begin with Mr. Andrews.
There was a bill proposed in the legislature that got shot down that would have protected election workers from harassment and threats. And I think that's probably the place where we need to start, is protecting those workers. The people that are election workers, they're people that are retired, that have done their career and they want to give back to the community. And they come in and do that. And they used to be proud of what they did. And they would share with their friends, oh, I work in elections. Now it's something that they're keeping quiet. And it's because of that ridicule that they've been receiving, and how they're being perceived in public. And so looking at how can we protect those employees, so that there are penalties for attacking them or threatening them or things like that. And so that's our biggest challenge over these next couple of years, is retaining these people that we need to keep working in elections. And so, that's the challenge that we're trying to work on making better, so that we'll have the staff we need to conduct an election.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh, no, you did a fine job explaining it. Thank you.
Okay.
No one should be subject to harassment or threats. I mean, this is, in essence, that's called terrorism, and it's violence or threats of violence in efforts to gain a political objective. And we cannot have that in our society. We have to have public discourse. We have to be able to talk back and forth. And our election workers, they might be vilified because of what happened in 2020 or 2016, or any election that's happened since we've had a system. That's understandable, because every election that we've had has been contested ever since we've been a nation. And this is not the most egregious time that we've had in our history. We can look back to 1865 and see that where our country attempted to go through divorce. We don't ever want that to happen. And the way that we protect these poll workers is by prosecuting those folks who make the threats. That's pretty simple. You hold them accountable and hold their feet to the fire.
Thank you. The next question. Given the ongoing controversies around election integrity, what will you do to ensure trust in the election process? And we'll begin with Mr. Simpson.
Well, that's easy. Hold people accountable when they do the wrong thing. When we have somebody who attempts to buy votes, prosecute them. That's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. When we find people cheating, prosecute them. Do the things that need to be done and hold them accountable. When people see that there are a problem, or that they will be held accountable, have their feet held to the fire, then they tend to do the right thing and follow the rules. And as leaders and as the elected officials, we have to follow the rules that are set forward. Our elections are governed by RCWs and by the administrative rules in our state. And if we don't follow those rules, how can we expect any of the people to actually follow them? And that's very important. And our auditor hasn't followed those rules and needs to be removed.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews.
Can you repeat, please?
I can. Given the ongoing controversies around election integrity, what will you do to ensure trust in the election process?
So what I've already started doing, and that was bringing in the parties and offering an independent third-party audit of that system, allowing them to create ballots and run them through the machines and see how they respond and how the system counts the votes, and test all of those things that you hear about. Sharpies don't work or whatever it might be. Sharpies actually work and we have no problems with them. We've introduced additional audits to the process so that not only are we doing, the state required audits where we're randomly counting ballots to compare against machine counts, but we're also doing a sampling of all of the ballots in an election, so we can actually compare the vote by vote, what the machine captured versus the physical ballot. And then, we're testing the equipment, and we're doing all of this under the watchful eye of the parties, available to the public, and keeping it as an open and transparent process so that we can show them that we are meeting all of these needs, and that the system is performing exactly the way it should. And we have big buy-in from both parties, that they participate in this and they trust the system from a party level. So it's about sharing it with, them sharing it with their members.
Thank you. Keeping an eye on the time, I think we have time for one more question. The auditor inspects county payments, financial reports, and payroll. What are the issues associated with those tasks? We'll begin with Mr. Andrews.
So, I mean, the payments, we have a lot of requirements depending on who the vendor is and getting all of the right taxing information, everything that we would have to have so that we can account for where the money's going and it's properly being paid, that we've received all of the proper billing and, tax statement stuff, and as far as for the employees and doing payroll, it's a constantly changing environment where withholdings are changing, new employees are coming in and out, the health health plans that they're opting into, or the retirement system withholdings are changing. We have bargaining unit agreement things that happen with our sheriff's guild. So we're constantly having to look at how their payments are being calculated and structured, because they have a very complex way of calculating their overtime based on the shift that they're on. I mean, it goes on and on with all of the various things that we're doing. And then as we do all of those, we're constantly auditing to make sure that we're getting the results that are expected. And then we're creating the reports in the end that validate all the work we did so that we can pass those audits by the state auditors.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. Simpson, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. Okay, so the finance and auditing function that the auditor's office does is very complex. There are rules that you have to follow. There are contracts that have to be followed. When money comes in and money goes out, it has to be accounted for and ensured that it goes to the proper place. That's why we do internal audits. That's why we review everything that we do. That's why we don't just have one person doing it. We have multiple hands that are involved in the entire process. And the amount of payroll that we do in the county is pretty small compared to what businesses do in the private sector. And businesses in the private sector follow many of the same federal and state rules that our county has to follow. And we have good people that work in the financial section of our auditor's office, and we'll continue to utilize those folks to do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Now it's time for us to do your closing statements. You will each have 90 seconds. Oh, yes.
Liz, we have another half hour.
Oh, I thought we were going to.
We have
Oh,
an hour, 6:30 to 7:30. So we've got some more good questions.
yes, we do. Okay, sorry. I was thinking we'd started at 6 for some reason. All right. You guys, you still get more of a chance to talk with us. So let me get back to my questions here. So we're on number 9 then. Okay. Thank you, Janet. Wasn't my stomach growling that told me that. Okay, we're going to go to the next.
Cup of coffee.
Okay, we're going to go to the next question then. And this one will go to Mr. Simpson, I believe. Yes. Okay, first off. All right. The auditor is responsible for property records, licensing of vehicles and vessels, and issuing marriage licenses. What are the challenges associated with that work? And we'll begin with Mr. Simpson.
Well, the property records aren't limited to just that, and these are documents that belong to the public, and the government or the auditor's office, more specifically, is entrusted with these documents, and they need to be secured. We need to make sure that they are protected and preserved and readily available for those that need them. Now, the inputs that come in can be done electronically. They can be done in person. These represent different challenges on both aspects. And the process that has been utilized for the in-person recording of these documents has been fairly efficient. The electronic version of this is being sped up quite a bit. And some of that has to do with how we reacted to COVID and how we reacted to public input with various aspects in our community. So, what other challenges are we going to, looks like we're going to be, time is one of the things that we're going to be challenged with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Andrews, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
All right. The auditor is responsible for property records, licensing of vehicles and vessels, and issuing marriage licenses. What are the challenges associated with that work?
So, I mean, the challenges are vast. I mean, most of it has to do with format of the documents, making sure that all of the proper legal information is contained in those documents, that we have, that there's legibility, that the notaries, all of the information is current and provided on those documents so we can process them. A lot of times when you're talking about vehicle documents, there's additional things that are required when you're moving in from out of state purchases and things like that add additional complexities to it. Marriage licenses are pretty straightforward. The couple come in, they know what they want. The biggest challenge that we faced was when I took office, realizing that we didn't have a translator service available that would help people that don't speak English still be able to conduct business with us. And so we were able to find a service and bring in an iPad device, and we can communicate with them through this device where we have a translator. It's either video or just audio, and we can conduct all kinds of business. So we can get their vehicles licensed, we can get their documents recorded, or we can issue them a marriage license.
Thank you. Next question. A small number of ballots, missing or matched signatures that need to be fixed or cured before they can be counted. What processes would you use to deal with this situation? And we'll begin with Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to repeat because for some
No
reason it
problem.
cut out while you were talking.
Okay. A small number of ballots have problems such as missing or mismatched signatures that need to be fixed or cured before they can be counted. What processes would you use to deal with these situations?
So it starts with the ballot when it comes in, and we scan it and we compare the signature against the signature on file. If the signature doesn't appear to match by the first person, we escalate it. It goes through a couple of people. If ultimately when it doesn't match, then we start a process of issuing a letter. So we contact the voter, we let them know that their signature's been challenged, and we get that off to them. That's why we always encourage you to vote early, so that it gives more time to cure signatures. And if they don't end up getting that signature cured, as we closer to certification, we start making phone calls. We use any kind of contact information we have for them, if it's an email or whatever. But we do a lot of work in curing signatures and helping get those cured. You'd be surprised how many ballots actually come in that don't even have a signature at all. That we're receiving the ballot and now we're asking them, you submitted this, but we didn't get a signature, so we need to get that so that we can get their ballot opened and get it processed.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson, would you like me to reread the question?
Oh, no, I
Okay.
understood it after you went digital for a while. Okay, so there we go. Now we got the time up. All right, so
You seem to be freezing, Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, Mr. Simpson.
curing the ballot's an important thing. We want to make sure that like I'm frozen in there. We want to make that it's actually the person who is registered to vote cast the ballot, and making sure that that signature matches is how we did.
Your connection's very.
Yeah, it seems like we're having some technical difficulties.
Yes.
What I'd like to suggest first is if you turn your video off, at least you'll be able, your voice will go smoothly. You want to give that a try?
All right, well, I'm doing it on my iPhone, so let's see if I can figure out how to turn the video off. All right, let's give that a shot. Can you guys hear me okay?
What do you want me to do with the time?
Start over on his time.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Would you like me to read the question
Okay.
again? Okay. A
Yeah,
number
go ahead.
of,
Go ahead and reread the question.
okay. A small number of ballots have problems such as missing or mismatched signatures that need to be fixed or cured before they can be counted. What processes would you use to deal with this situation?
Okay, so the auditor's office is required by state law to keep the original signature on file from when you register, and you compare the signatures that come in. If the envelope doesn't have a signature on it, or the signatures don't match, then you have to contact the voter and go through the curing process. This gets complicated because some of these ballots come from overseas with our military voters. They come from outside the county, from folks who don't have a mailing address inside the county, and these voters have to be contacted so that we can validate their ballots. And it's a pretty straightforward process, but each case can get very complicated and very convoluted very quickly. And we have about 5% of the vote that get 5% of the ballots that's typically rejected for one reason or another. Sometimes it's because of signatures, sometimes it's because of other things that happen with the ballot.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Mr. Simpson, you can still see the timer.
I can still see the timer, yes, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that didn't go when you took off your visual. All right, the next question. Voting in the state of Washington is considerably easier for our citizens than in many other states. Do you support Washington's approach to voting, why or why not? And we'll begin with Mr. Simpson.
Well, that's a great question. Okay, the system that we have is a system what we have, and that's what we have to work with. There are arguably other systems that seem to work better. What goes on in New Hampshire, where they do town hall voting, that seems to work well for them. What's going on down in Georgia, it has been debated as to whether it's going to suppress voter turnout or increase voter turnout. It will be interesting to see what those two states come up with for their voter turnout for this next election cycle. Now, we should be looking at everything all around us and seeing if what's working for us is the best system, or if we can implement some of these other things that other states have done that help increase their security and increase the timeliness of how quickly they can get the voter turn, or get the number of votes in and get them tabulated properly.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, vote by mail is a wonderful system, and it isn't something that we just started doing. It was something that we evolved towards. We were polling places, and then we had excuse absentee, and then eventually we went to no excuse absentee, and that was for a period of about 10 years. And over that time, more and more people said, "Hey, I'd like to do this, via absentee ballot and absentee voting." And it's been shown and proven that absentee, or that vote by mail is the process that is most effective for conducting elections. We have more and more states that are moving towards that every year. And it's part of that process like we went through, where, for a period of years, you were a hybrid of some sort. And we see that in many of these states that, that we hear about on the news all the time. But vote by mail really does give us all of the necessary controls to make sure everything is safe and accurate, and it gives plenty of time for people to participate and get the job done of getting the votes returned.
Thank you. The next question, and I believe this is the final question that I have. What motivated you to run for the auditor office? Mr. Andrews, we'll begin with you.
For me, being auditor was part of being a public servant. I had spent many years working with the public and understanding that government could do better, and it's that love of making government work better for people that really had inspired me to pursue the office and be an elected official. We have responsibilities to the citizens. The services the auditor provides are the only place you can go to get those services. And so making sure that we're exceeding expectations, that is what I've strove for throughout my whole career. And that's how I direct my staff today, is that our job is to find ways to say yes, solve problems for people, don't push them off and send them away. And the staff has risen to that. They've responded. They like what they do. They love helping people. And that's really what being a public servant is about, is helping people and conducting business and getting things done.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Mr. Simpson, and should we take a moment to see if you can get your video back up, and if you'd like us to be able to see you as you're speaking?
Well, let's see if we can get this going without the video jumping around.
Okay, now we can see you now. So would you like to answer this question, or would you like me to repeat it?
Oh no, I'm absolutely comfortable answering the question.
Okay.
Our elected officials need to approach public service with the heart of a servant. And we've seen many times in the past our elected officials come forward with a dismissive, arrogant attitude that doesn't speak with the heart of a servant. It doesn't come with humility, and doesn't come with the ideal that it is about public service. Now, we've got lots of good people in government, and we have lots of great folks that do great things. But when we see our elected officials mismanage their office and screw up elections, it can inspire us to get rid of these folks. And last year, when the auditor screwed up the election for the city council, it inspired me to run because we deserve better. We should do better. And that's why I asked for your vote.
Thank you. Now, it looks like it's time for our closing statements. So you will each have 90 seconds for a closing statement, and we will begin with Mr. Simpson. And there you are. Okay.
So the auditor's office is an absolute core function of government. And we need someone in that office who will have the integrity and transparency and the moral turpitude to effectively work this office the way that it should be done. It should be done in a nonpartisan manner. Government does not require an R or a D behind your name to make it work, because the relationship that we have with government is not our master, it is our servant. It is here to work for us. And I am someone who comes forward with the heart of a servant, someone who will effectively and faithfully serve you as your auditor. Now, my opponent will tell you that there's gorilla dust and nonsense that has nothing to do with his office. But the truth is that my opponent screwed up an election last year and needs to be removed immediately. He failed to prosecute someone who offered to pay people to vote. And he'll tell you that, oh, it's been thoroughly investigated, but that's an outright lie. And that needs to be rectified immediately. That's why I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Andrews, you now have 90 seconds to give your final statement.
Well, thank you for your time this evening, and I've enjoyed answering all of the questions you've presented. Like I said at the beginning of this, experience matters, and it's clear that I have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to represent you as auditor. Now more than ever, we need transparency and accountability in elections and an elected official who represents all citizens of Kitsap County. My track record is proof of my integrity, my accountability, and my transparency. The many endorsements I have from elected officials from both parties, as well as the endorsements from the public, show I represent all. I enjoy the work I do representing you. I expect to be held accountable for my actions, not false accusations. And I sit before you today asking for your support. I've advanced all aspects of the office, oversaw the largest election in Kitsap County history, and maintained full office services throughout a pandemic. I understand my role as auditor and know that the voters know what the voters and citizens expect. And we strive to exceed those expectations, and our actions show we care. I guarantee you, the auditor's office, the commissioner's office, the sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney, and courts don't concern themselves with who was elected, only that the law was followed and the law was upheld. So many members of the Bremerton City Council have endorsed me because they know I have integrity. Thank you again for your time, and I ask for your vote this November.
Thank you, candidates. Voters, hopefully this forum has helped you choose your candidate. Ballots for the November 8th general election were mailed out October 19th, so keep an eye out for yours. The League is encouraging voters to vote early and return their ballots as soon as possible, preferably to one of Kitsap County's 25 ballot drop boxes. Their locations can be found on Kitsap Auditor's website. The Kitsap Candidates Forum of this past week have been recorded, and links to the videos will soon be on our website at lwv-kitsap.org. BKAT will also play back the recordings on Friday evenings through November 4th. Please encourage others to vote the forums and vote, or to view the forums and vote. Thank you for attending, and good night.